Good morning. Broadcasting live from a gloomy Monday morning Cancer moon in my bed. I think that's really just the best way to commemorate this day. Winter fresh. Um, yeah, good morning. A little late today because the Chicago Teachers Union is still on strike. But guess who is not surprised? Me, the astrologer, who knew that the sign Libra is permanently changed for all of us. The last couple of years of Libra transits have made it very clear that the game has changed. Good morning, Juniper88. The game has changed. Yesterday I was working on my blog post for Jupiter in Sagittarius, which begins November 4th, and I recapped the past 3 Jupiter transits in like a sentence each. And what I said for Jupiter in Libra, which was from September 2017 until October 2018. Oh, my neck hurts. Hold on. Okay. How I described Jupiter in Libra was that the role of women in society challenged and changed, from violence against women to women representing us in Congress in numbers that have been unprecedented, plus all of the resurgence of unions and the use of the strike as a tool for demanding equality and fairness for workers. So I wasn't surprised when the teachers went on strike. Matter of fact, I can't even find the tweet, but I said something to the effect that if they didn't come to an agreement and sign a contract before Mercury enters its retrograde shadow, I was like, yep, they're going on strike. So that was like October 11th, I think, that Mercury entered its retrograde shadow. And sure enough, they did not have a contract before then. But it sounds like they're making progress. Anyways, that's not what I wanted to come over here and talk about. I wanted to come over here and talk about Scorpio. Because because Mercury enters Scorpio on Wednesday. Hola, hola, hola. I think that's Nikki NT Dub. Um, and I don't have no sense, y'all. So just, you know, Mercury enters Scorpio Wednesday, October 23rd. And then Sunday, the 27th, Venus enters Scorpio. Mars is square Saturn. There's a new moon in Libra. All of the things that define fall 2019 kind of come to a head in a very significant way over the next probably week and a half. We've been playing softball for the last few weeks. I'm just going to be honest. Mercury crossing over into Scorpio is definitely one of those. How you like 2018? Was that nice? How did you like that Mercury retrograde at the end of 2018? How was that? It was like fresh Jupiter in Scorpio. And Mercury was like, hey, Jupiter, how you doing? Welcome to the retrograde shadow. We're going to do this dance 3 times. Right? That was last year. Mercury conjoined Jupiter and Scorpio thrice. Tres. And the trois. 3 time 3. So this time, the Mercury retrograde starts off with a conjunction of a Mercury and Venus. I just need you all to know that when you don't see me on Twitter, and I'm about to be real absent for a while, when you don't see me on Twitter, it is because I am writing and I am working. And I have so many things I'm writing and working on, and it's a very laborious process, but I'm committed. So the things that I'm working on are the 2020 sidereal astrology guide. I'm working on a Jupiter in Sagittarius post. The 2020 sidereal astrology guide itself is just a whole thing that I've been working on for months, and I'm just to the nitty gritty of it now. But I bring that up because I keep sucking my teeth because I can. One of the things I'm constantly working on, hi train wreck, help. I am well. I recognize you from Twitter. One of the things I'm constantly working on in my work as an astrologer is finding the right words to communicate certain astrological concepts and ideas to you. Hi, Jessica. And so I went back and read my 2017 sidereal astrology guide, and I was like, God, how did anybody understand what I was saying? Because some of the language was so freaking convoluted. Um, so for the 2020 sidereal astrology guide, I've like been laboring over like making the language very direct and accessible. So that brings me back to the way this whole Mercury retrograde is about to kick off about a week from now. October 31st is the date. And that is with Mercury the day before it stops and reverses course, like right as it's just lingering, pausing in the sky. Mercury is going to conjoin Venus in Scorpio. That's intense. So it begs the question, like, what is Mercury? I get a lot of questions from people about what shouldn't I do during the Mercury retrograde and da-da-da-da-da. I don't think that's the appropriate approach. The real question is, what should you do? I'm going to come back to that. But all of that to say, I'm so excited about 2020 next year. So much. Yes. So what I want to say about how I've been working on my language is something about Mercury. And Mercury, what does Mercury do? I want you to think of like a thermometer, not the new fandangled electric ones where you just like hold it up in the vicinity of a human and it just like scans the room for the temperature. Not those. I'm talking about like the glass thermometers for that have like actual mercury in them, or like very old mirrors that actually have mercury as well, really toxic too, now that you think about it, that have mercury behind the glass to offer your reflection. It's a mirror, right? That mercury is literally reflecting the room around it. And in the thermometer, the mercury actually moves in response to the temperature, right? The mercury rises. So the sometimes you all like send these really long messages while I'm talking and they're a little bit distracting. I appreciate your engagement, but if I pause, that's why, because it's hard to read and talk at the same time. What Mercury ultimately does is amplify. Think of Mercury as like, think of Mercury as like, oh, if you've ever been to like a, if you've ever been, if you've, man, the scammers are on it today. If you've ever been to like a rally or a protest, and the person with the microphone or the bullhorn is like amplifying the chant or the rally cry or the call that like kind of brings the protesters together. What they're saying is really just what the rest of the protesters are saying, like out loud. Like, this is Mercury, right? So Mercury is literally just amplifying the room, amplifying the atmosphere. So Mercury is a really interesting planet because when it is in conjunct another planet, it amplifies that planet. It makes that planet louder. So it's kind of like if Mercury in Scorpio is like, Mercury's gonna be like, right? It's gonna just make it louder. So having Mercury stationary retrograde as it conjoins Venus on October 31st is like a planet being stationary is already like, pay attention to me, mofos. I got something to show y'all. Like, if you think that you're going to focus on something else, let me just, let you know that you're not. If you think that, right? It's very much, I always call planets that are stationary retrograde, like Gaper's delay. Like if you live in a city, that has a lot of traffic and there's an accident, off the side of the road or even on the other direction, oftentimes the news person, when announcing the traffic, will be like, yeah, there's a Gaper's delay between blah, 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 and blah, 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 on blah, blah, blah. But what they're saying is that the drivers in one lane of traffic or one direction of traffic are distracted by something happening going the other direction. Or you can think of a planet stationing retrograde like we all trying to make a left turn, but the person at the front of the line, no, that is not Jupiter. The person at the front of the line wants to make a U-turn, right? So now everybody's all backed up because of the one person that wants to make a U-turn. Stationary retrograde planets disrupt the flow of traffic. They cause a Gaper's delay. They distract our attention from other things going on. Everybody's all moving forward through the zodiac and they making their aspects and they beefing and they're reinforcing each other. And then one planet decides to stop and turn around and go back. And now any planets that are in aspect with that are like, wait, what are you doing? Why are you stopping? What's going on here? Like, you're disrupting the flow of traffic. We're trying to move forward through the zodiac. Why are you trying to move backwards? We already did that. Why are we doing that again? Right? These are all really great analogies to understand Mercury stationary retrograde. So in your own life, just be real practical. Like, don't be deep. Don't be deep. Don't be deep. I promise you. Don't be deep. In your own life, what would make you stop, right? Like, I do not understand your question, the cherished one. In your life, what can make you like stop, like, and put your car in reverse and like go all the way back? Like, what in your life would make you do that? What would be the circumstances under which you would stop, turn around, and go back and then like finish another time? Let's say you left something at home. Let's say that you have to use the bathroom, right? All of those things just signify that there's something that you have to complete or get before you continue forward progress. This is happening in our Scorpio house. So back to that Mercury-Venus conjunction. The last time Venus was in Scorpio was January 2019. This happened after a very long Venus in Libra transit that lasts from September 1st, 2018 until December 31st, 2018. Whole 4 months of Venus in Libra. The very first day of 2019, Venus entered Scorpio. One of the really major events, I think, culturally and collectively for America and for women was how Surviving R. Kelly aired. And we all know what happened as a consequence of that, right? Like, he is indicted on federal charges both in New York and Chicago, awaiting trial, finally behind bars. Hopefully those women are free. I hope they sue him for, a civil suit and get all the money that they need to get all of the psychiatric and mental, emotional, physical well-being care that they need. Another story for another day, but the whole point being that that Venus was last in Scorpio in January. So just thinking about the way that this Mercury retrograde is kicking off, we have like these touchstones, these points in time, these reference points that connect very intimately to this Mercury retrograde. So this brings me to my next point about Mercury retrograde. Almost every single time Mercury goes retrograde, it is going over portions of the zodiac where significant astrological events have occurred in the past. This is true for mostly any astrological configuration, right? But this particular Mercury retrograde is very, very, very special. On October 30th, when Mercury is just kind of paused in the sky, it will conjoin Venus at 3 degrees Scorpio. Let's make a list of all of the important things that have occurred at or near 3 degrees. This requires us to go all the way back to August 21st of 2017. There was a total solar eclipse that darkened the whole of America at 4 degrees Leo. That is 90 degrees from where Mercury will station retrograde on October 31st, 90 degrees from where it will conjoin Venus on October 30th. The Cherish You, Mercury Venus conjunction will only activate your Mercury Venus conjunction if it is conjunct, square, or opposed your own Mercury Venus conjunction. Next thing that happened at 3 degrees, there was a solar eclipse at 3 degrees Aquarius, February 18th of 2018. That is also square where Mercury will station retrograde conjoin Venus, right? So keep those dates: August 21st, 2017, February 18th or 15th, I think 18th, 2018. Then we go back to October 30th, 2018, which was 1 year ago. And that was the Mercury retrograde. I'm just looking at my calendar. You see, I got my 2018, 2019, 2020 moon calendars and all of that stuff. Okay. Mercury conjunct Jupiter in Scorpio at 3 degrees on October 29th, 2018. That is exactly conjoined where Mercury and Venus are going to go. I'm giving you these dates because you need to be thinking about what was going on in your life at that time. Please think about it. When did Mercury actually station retrograde? Right, that's where Mercury stationed direct. So December 6, 2018. You're welcome. The cherished one. December 6, 2018, Mercury direct at 3 degrees Scorpio. You thought it was over, didn't you? But I've got one more date for you. And that is going to be May. May 18, 2019. Full moon at 3 degrees Scorpio. Whoo! Why does that same degree keep getting hit over and over and over and over? Now we got Mercury conjunct Venus at 3 degrees Scorpio on October 30th. Mercury stationary retrograde at 3 degrees Scorpio. And then Mercury will leave its retrograde shadow sometime, crossing over that 3 degrees of Scorpio. I don't even think Mercury goes back into Scorpio until like December. Super wild, man. Right? No. Where is it? Mercury doesn't even leave its retrograde shadow crossing back over 3 degrees Scorpio until December. What is Scorpio and why is there so much astrological activity there? What is this about? There are no coincidences and accidents, and all of these things are really, really important, and they're narratives and stories that we're watching over a long period of time. To me, all of these things happening in Scorpio and Taurus, to be fair, are a preparation in some ways for the eclipses that are going to begin in Scorpio and Taurus in June of 2020. But as far as this Mercury retrograde, here are the things that you should be paying attention to. What I'm about to do right now is I'm going to go into my own blog and I'm just going to read these questions that I wrote about Jupiter. Hold on, let me get my thoughts together. What is it? September 3rd of 2018, I published a blog post called Jupiter in Scorpio 2018, 2019. And at the end of that blog post, I listed 10 questions. Um, I think that these questions are so important as one, not only we're wrapping up Jupiter and Scorpio transit, but just all of this activity in Scorpio, especially this Mercury retrograde. So I want you to erase everything that you know about Scorpio. I want you to just like wipe the slate clean. These questions I'm about to present to you have nothing to do with sex. They have nothing to do with manipulation and emotional intensity. They have nothing to do with being deep and magnetic. Like, all of those things are very, very, very useless to me personally when talking about any zodiac sign. I want to know what the function is. I don't want to know what people act like. Like, I can see that with my own eyes, to be honest. So I don't necessarily need, I really want to know what motivates people, not what they do. So here are the guiding questions that I wrote for Jupiter in Scorpio transit, and they are very, very applicable to this Mercury retrograde. And in case you're just joining in, Mercury enters Scorpio on this Wednesday, October 23rd. Mercury will conjoin Venus as its stationary retrograde at 3 degrees Scorpio on October 30th, and Mercury will actually begin moving retrograde on October 31st. Here are the questions. What experiences lead you to greater emotional autonomy? Do you know what emotional autonomy is? Don't you worry, I'll explain it to you. Emotional autonomy is, quote, I have a right to feel how I feel because feeling how I feel is a necessary means to survival. I must be able to distinguish pain from pleasure, fear from joy, because my survival depends on me being able to say, you're scary. That hurts. I don't like you. You hurt me. Right? Emotional autonomy means the boundaries around my own emotional experience, that I am not betraying my own emotional reality in order to make somebody else feel more comfortable, safe, and secure. The key here is what experiences lead you to greater emotional autonomy? What experiences make you realize that, you know what? Your comfort is not more important than my survival. Hello. All right, number 2. In what ways is dissension a matter of survival for you? Boo, 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 boo. Dissension, that's a good word. Dissension is the opposite of consensus. Consensus means with agreement, with a similar feeling. Dissension means with differing feelings. So how is you maintaining your emotional ground a matter of survival for you? What is your relationship with anger, fear, and other uncomfortable emotions? What I love so much, and I'm just most certain that this person has mad Scorpio in their chart. But the holistic psychologist has like just boomed and blossomed, talking so much about trauma, emotional self-neglect, and reparenting during this whole Jupiter and Scorpio transit. Like, I just love the synchronicity, because all of the things that she's talking about and teaching and speaking and writing about from a psychological perspective are all of the questions that I wrote in my Jupiter and Scorpio transit post back in September. And so the next question is, in what areas of your life is it necessary to leave others behind for the sake of your own life and emotional well-being? Right? Oof, that's a good one. What does, quote, stand your ground, end quote, mean for you? And where in your life are you ready to take on this stance? Hi, Reedy Reed. I saw your text, but I'm live, so I couldn't respond or read them. Who are the people and what are the experiences that encourage your right to feel how you feel? That would be Reedy Reed for me, and Winter Fresh right there. What does it feel like for you to honor your feelings and not rationalize them or conform so that other people will accept you? I'm gonna read that one again because I don't think y'all heard me the first time. What does it look like for you to honor your feelings, not rationalize them or conform so that other people will accept you? You gotta think about that. If you want these questions, I will retweet them. The link to the blog post on Twitter. Um, It's in my link tree on here, but it's probably way at the bottom, so I'll move it up for you. It'll be in the link in my bio. Number 8. In what ways has your refusal to conform left you isolated and alone? That's a good one. Number 9. How have experiences of separation and abandonment cultivated a defensive stance telling you that emotional intimacy is unsafe for me? This really is the core of Scorpio for me. And let me break it down for you real quick. Everyone has Scorpio somewhere in their birth chart. Even if you do not have planets there, there is a house in your birth chart that has Scorpio on it. And that particular person, area of your life, experiences, place, answers to Mars. To say that Scorpio is not in you is to say you have no survival instinct, which means that you wouldn't be dead. Thank you. So everyone has Scorpio. It is not required for you to have Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Ascendant, or whatever weird asteroid, whatever, in Scorpio for Scorpio to be alive in your chart. Okay? Just let's get that straight. Number 2. I tweeted this last year, I believe. And I'm going to say it here again because it's a big part of this particular question, which is Scorpio represents a defensive posture. This idea that like Scorpio is out to get you and manipulate you and, cheat you and all of this absolute nonsense. Let's just be clear. Each and every one of us have internalized messages about what emotions are safe, what needs will be responded to, and what is required of us in order to get our needs met. I'm going to say that again. Every single one of us have internalized messages, internalized beliefs, internalized stories telling us which emotions are safe to express, which needs will be met. You understand me? We all have defensive postures that we have internalized and taken on because at some point it was made very, very, very clear to us that, for example, you reaching out for a hug will not be responded to. Right? Your need to be seen, felt, understood, rejected. Your anger is not welcome here. Your sadness, I don't have room for that. We've all internalized messages that say, you know what? That need does not exist. I'm just going to cut it out and put that over there. I don't need it anymore. So this Jupiter and Scorpio transit for all of us. I'm going to read this question again. How have experiences of separation and abandonment cultivated a defensive stance telling you the story that emotional intimacy is unsafe for me? Emotional intimacy means I am willing to lay myself bare to myself in your presence. I am willing to acknowledge the reality of my own feelings and needs in the presence of someone else. This is what grown-ups know. Just because you have a need does not mean it will be met. Just because you want something doesn't mean that you will get it. Right? So, what defensive postures have you taken on that tell you that, you know what, it's really not even worth it for me to acknowledge these feelings because they're never going to be met anyway? Right? Last question. Excuse me. Number 10. What is the cost you pay for putting your feelings first? See, this is why we have to have a really complete understanding that this is nuance. This isn't just, I have a right to feel how I feel because I can feel how I feel when I want to feel. Yes, absolutely that. But also, there is a cost I pay. This is the really, I want to say, nuanced. I'm going to have to plug up this iPad. Hold on. Hold on. I'm still here. I'm still here. Hold on. Uh-oh. There we go. Hold on. I'm just trying to plug this in so I don't die. There is a cost that we pay for living in the reality of our feelings. And just for context, the whole Scorpio Taurus dance is about, conforming versus emotional autonomy, understanding the places that are safe, creating safe spaces. One of the things that I talked about around the new moon in Taurus and that full moon in Scorpio that is triggered once again by this Mercury retrograde was that you cannot be validated unless you're willing to show up authentically. That takes a risk. Showing up authentically sometimes is really as simple as, you hurt my feelings. I'm sad. I was angry when that happened. Right? Train wreck help. Go to my YouTube channel and look for the new moon in Taurus video. I talk about a lot about mutual investment in relationship and community around the Taurus side. Check it out. But validation requires honesty, radical self-honesty, being able to be real with yourself about what your needs are and how you really feel about stuff. So, in closing, this Mercury retrograde is bringing up a lot of old stuff, not just stuff from the dates that I mentioned before in this video, but stuff from childhood and the past. Jupiter is still in Scorpio. As a matter of fact, is it the 29th and 30th? Yeah, October 29th, 30th, and some of the 31st. Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, and the moon will all be in Scorpio. So we get just a little bit of a taste of a stellium in Scorpio at the end of October. I really want you guys to look around you and within you and really feel what's going on. Pay attention to things that trigger kind of habitual emotional reactions in you, because I really feel like it does us all a very deep disservice to continue to talk about Scorpio as a sign that is defined by sexuality. I think that is just really missing the mark and blocking off an opportunity for growth and healing and self-reflection. This Mercury retrograde will, I think, bring up a lot for all of us around consensus versus dissension. Consensus is with agreement, with similar feeling, and dissension is with differing feeling, right? The whole point of dissension is, I don't agree with you, and I'm not going to pretend like I agree with you just so we can move forward. Dissension is about standing your emotional ground. All right, so what does that mean to you? What does that mean to stand your emotional ground? And I think the final piece here is that standing your emotional ground does not mean that people are going to respond to your feelings the way that you want them to. Being a grown up and taking this opportunity for healing means that I am willing to stand my own emotional ground, even when other people don't feel me, even when other people disagree with me, even when it triggers other people, because it will. When you say, this is how I feel, and I'm not going to perform a different feeling just so you can be comfortable. Where's my friend at? Train wreck help, that's Taurus, right? The behavioral aesthetic consensus is what Taurus is. How should I look? How should I behave? What adjustments do I need to make to be in relationship and community? But for Taurus, it's like, what is going to keep me alive? Right? This idea of self-betrayal is a phrase I've seen so much, just in how psychology has become pretty accessible these days. And self-betrayal means I feel this way, but I'm not going to let you know how I really feel, because if I really let you know how I really feel, you will abandon, reject me, hurt me. Right? Do y'all have any questions for me? I have time today. So do you guys have any questions for me while I'm still here? Have any questions about Mercury retrograde? Having any questions about Scorpio? I did want to say something else about Mercury retrograde. So Mercury is actually going to station direct at 16 degrees, 17 degrees Libra, which is where Venus stationed retrograde last year. That's on November 20th. That's going to be a really interesting kind of trigger back to the fall. What was that Venus retrograde about for you guys? What was going on for you guys last year, especially October and November? Really, I'm thinking too, though, about like Venus, because I feel like with Venus retrograde, like maybe it's with any retrograde, that shadow period leading up to the retrograde station is always so dramatic. And then the actual direct station, the actual retrograde itself is like, oh, it's really about the approach to the slowing down and then the getting back started up and moving through the zodiac for the last pass. Ah, yes, 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 yes. That doesn't have anything to do with retrogrades, my friend. There is no not affected. There is no I wasn't affected by something astrologically. Like, this is what you guys need to understand about sidereal astrology, that it really kind of upsets the way that you might think about astrology based on following tropical astrology. That this is about keeping time. This is about measuring, segmenting, and interpreting time. So it's not about, oh, since my Mercury's retrograde, Mercury retrogrades don't affect me. It is about just pay attention to what is happening in your life at that time period and how does it connect. It could be something really mundane or it can be something intense, just depending upon certain factors around your birth chart. But there is no such thing as I was not affected. You did not fall off the face of the earth during Venus retrograde, right? That Venus retrograde was about justice for and by women. It was about fairness and equality. It was about, and this is what's important to understand about Libra, because this is where the majority of the retrograde is even happening for Mercury this year. What you need to understand about Libra is that this is not about love. This is not about your feelings. Libra is about the implicit, the implied, and explicit agreements that undergird our relationships, right? What are the agreements we make with each other collectively as a society one-on-one in communities about how we are going to move forward and be in relationship and community with each other. This is the union. This is the strike. They're saying this is the agreement for how we are going to work together. And if you cannot agree to these things, then we are not going to work. Right? The explicit agreements are contracts. This is why unions are such a Libra thing, right? This is what a law is. A law is an explicit agreement about if you are a citizen in this country, then this is how you are going to be a part of this community, right? This is why Scorpio comes after Libra, because being a member of a community requires self-betrayal at some point, right? And I kind of don't want to use that phrase because there's a negative connotation with it. So I'll say that being a member of the community requires that we adjust and conform. But the important thing is that Scorpio comes to say you cannot adjust and conform until the point that you hurt yourself. Sometimes the agreement is whack. Take, for example, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who has Aries rising with Jupiter and Aries conjoined the ascendant. This is another Mars-Venus opposition here between Libra and Aries. Libra is the law. It is it's the explicit and implicit agreement, right? Yes, this has absolutely everything to do with that. Saturn is exalted in Libra because Libra is Saturn is reality and Libra is consensus. Reality is a consensus. If I walk outside and say the sky is orange and 50 people come out here and say the sky is orange right behind me, the one person who says the sky is blue is crazy. And if we, the 50 who say the sky is orange, decide that anybody who believes the sky is blue needs to be locked up in a psychiatric institution, guess who's getting locked up in the psychiatric institution? Even if they can mathematically prove that the sky is blue, all 50 of us say it's orange and we agreed that you're crazy, so you're going to get locked up. You see what I'm saying? So back to my Martin Luther King Jr. example. Aries rising. Right? The explicit and implicit agreements in the social contract around how Black people should behave and be treated. You step off the sidewalk if a white person comes down. You go sit in the back of the bus. You don't look no white person in the eye. I'm Mr. and Mrs. to you, Negro. It takes an Aries to say, your laws don't get to control what I'm capable of. I'm capable of more, right? Anyways, that's all I got for you. I have to go write. I did 1,000 words yesterday and it was like pulling blood from a turnip. I did 1,000 words yesterday for that Jupiter in Sagittarius post. Y'all better read it too, is all I'm saying. And I'm going to go try to crank out another 500 to 1,000. I don't want to make it too long. But yeah. I've preached enough on today. That's all I have to say. I know the way I talk about signs, that's all I have to say. And then I go again talking. I know I talk about signs in a way that is so foreign to you, but I promise you it makes really logical sense. And if you pay attention to the world around you, you will see that literally everything I'm saying is happening. And it's not rocket science. It's really not rocket science. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you missed this video, it'll be up on my Instagram channel, and I will upload it onto YouTube today so that you can watch it anytime, because eventually Instagram will take it down. Just search the People's Oracle on YouTube. I'll read it after this. I'm dedicated to making this a healing period rather than a repeat of last fall until your words are appreciated. Absolutely. That's the great thing about astrology. When you pay attention and you see the connections and patterns, you can look back, Kelsey, and see that you already are totally a different person than you were, because just having lived through this past year, you have had new experiences that have changed your perception, right? Access to new information, new context. That's what it's all about. Appreciate you guys. Have a happy Monday. I'll talk to y'all soon.